Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named FarReference in the relationship advice subreddit. The post is titled, "Fiance wants his father to check my hymen tomorrow night before I get married. My fiance proposed to me about 8 months ago. We decided on having a relatively small wedding, which is in 2 days. Everything was going great. He seems absolutely perfect and we are very much in love. I am a virgin and so is he. He wanted to save it for marriage and I wasn't fussed, so I agreed to saving it. He had told me earlier that in his family, the father checks the virginity of the bride the night before the wedding. I laughed this off as it seriously sounds like a massive joke. However, it turns out he was dead serious. He wants me the night before to participate in a small ceremony-like event where his dad can check me while he, his brothers, and uncle can watch, so that they know I am still pure. I told him there was no way I was going to do that, and he was begging me to go through with it, explaining how important it is for him. He said he knew it was slightly embarrassing for me, but his mom did it, and it will prove how much I love him and that I have nothing to hide anyway, as I am still a virgin. I left and he was crying. It was very dramatic, to be honest. I want to call off the whole wedding because of this and never talk to him again, but at the same time, it's only one thing, and other than that, we are genuinely perfect for each other. I don't want to spend my life with anyone else, and it is very important to him and his family. What on earth do I do? I am currently at my friend's house and might stay here for the night. Tomorrow would be our last day as an unmarried couple, and I am straight up panicking. Update. First of all, thank you so much for all the replies. I didn't think this would get so big. I have read pretty much all of them. Also, thanks for all the gold and silver. It's appreciated. However, if you want to spend money, consider giving it to charity or something. I went and talked to him this morning. I told him that his father is not going to examine me and he needs to respect that. He was adamant that it needs to happen and accused me of lying about my virginity. I was trying to be calm and rational, but he was not having it and just became more and more angry. I told him that if he really loved me, he would stand by me on this and tell his father no, to which he slapped me and said he didn't need to prove anything. So I ended it and left him. I am currently back at my friend's house feeling miserable and eating pizza, which is pretty fun. So yup, thanks everyone. Saucy Boy said, this was and is still so common in many cultures that women had tricks they would teach to new brides to guarantee blood on their wedding nights. These included things like filling a fish bladder with blood and inserting it into oneself. Some even used an artificial hymen. The obsession with purity, which applies only to women, is meant to shame, vilify, and control their pleasure. Till23 said, OP out here doing her best Neo impression. Damn, she dodged a lot of bullets. What a sick and twisted family. But I really find it hard to believe there were no other red flags before this. I mean, one's family doesn't do other weird stuff without having the whole male side look at the partner's vagina. There's gotta be something else. Glad she got out. The dude is a piece of trash for real. Smada said, a hymen is not a freshness seal. It's not even closed. It's a flap of skin that can be more or less obstructive depending on the individual. It can also be broken by any rough physical activity, such as riding a bike or a horse, or even just a rough fall. It's not designed to be proof of virginity. However, this kind of man doesn't believe any of that, and he doesn't care. Virginity is something he feels that she owes him. It doesn't even cross his mind that he'll never be forced to prove his own virginity. Only hers matters. This is just messed up, misogynistic purity nonsense. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named New Adeptness. The post is titled, I poured wine on my husband's ex-GF. A few days ago, I told my mother-in-law that I would bring her grandchildren to her house for dinner. It was a gesture of good faith as she and my father-in-law had babysat for an entire weekend while my husband and I took some time to ourselves. My mother-in-law decided to make that dinner a grand occasion and invited the entire family over. I was fine with it. The more, the merrier. However, half an hour after we arrived, Jo walked in. Her entire back was exposed, with her breasts prominently displayed. Jo is my husband's ex-girlfriend, who also happens to be a favorite of my mother-in-law and a longtime friend of my husband's family. I don't know why they didn't work out, and frankly, I don't care. Long story short, Jo does what she always does at these functions. She touches my husband inappropriately, whispers in his ear, and tries to eat off his plate, among other things. She even went as far as trying to steal my seat next to him at the dinner table. Luckily, my sister-in-law was able to stop her. My husband is generally okay with putting his foot down. If Joe does anything truly egregious, he does put a stop to it, but to him, her touchy behavior and the way she tends to hover around him and try to get his attention don't fall into that category. I told myself to ignore her and not let her get to me, but she pulled me aside later that evening and said absolutely horrible things to me. She told me that it was only a matter of time before my husband left me and that he was using me as a breeding vessel among other insults. At that point, I had had enough. So I dumped my drink on her and walked away. Joe absolutely lost it and walked out of the house. My husband's extended family generally has a good opinion of me, so no one thinks I did it on purpose. However, my husband knows better. He pulled me to the side to confront me about it and was surprisingly angry. Did I make a bit of a scene? Sure, but his anger wasn't proportional to that at all. If you can't tell, my husband is the type of person who doesn't like to make a scene, especially around his family. I have complained about his proximity to Joe multiple times before all this went down. I've asked him to cut contact with her and basically just ignore her presence, and he's refused on the basis that she's a family friend. He thought I was overreacting every time I brought her up, but I'm tired of being the bigger person. Why should I have to watch her throw herself at him and rise above? No, that woman got what was coming to her, and my actions were long overdue. We argued back and forth about it for a while before I eventually revealed what she had said to me at dinner. He understood my anger at that point, but I don't think it should have even gotten that far for him to understand why I don't want her around. The fact that he would trust the character of an ex over his wife of more than 10 years and the mother of his children is baffling and incredibly hurtful. I explained this to him and he adamantly disagrees, giving excuses. So now we're here. My husband thinks I should have brought up what she said from the beginning. To me, this issue isn't what she said in and of itself, but her behavior as a whole. As a disclaimer, I know my husband is not cheating on me with this woman. We spend every waking second either together or with the kids. He wouldn't have time to. I trust him completely as well. It just bothers me how comfortable and desperate that woman is. My mother-in-law loves her and Joe can do no wrong in her eyes, so I suppose that's where she gets the confidence from. That aside, I don't understand why he allows her to come near him in the first place. Am I the asshole? Edit, no, I was not drinking while pregnant. I have not told my husband's family that I am pregnant, as we haven't passed the first trimester yet. My husband had gotten me juice in a wine glass, but because no one knew, the narrative became that I threw wine. Edit 2, I've gotten a couple of people asking how taking the kids to dinner is a reward for my mother-in-law. She had been asking us to come around for dinner for a while and is always asking for an excuse to see our kids. We don't live very close by anymore, so in-person visits are rare nowadays. She also really enjoys cooking for everyone and would do weekly dinners when my husband and I still lived in her area. My husband's family is Italian, which might give you an idea of their close-knit nature. Update. I wanted to post this in the relationship advice, but it got deleted, so I'm posting it here instead. This really isn't an am I the asshole post. I'm desperate for advice or ways to fix this situation once and for all. If you have any suggestions, please share them. There is some backstory to this situation, much of which is covered in a previous post of mine to this sub. Although I think that post is quite funny when I read it back. I'll summarize it for you if you don't feel like going back to read it. For context, both my husband and I have been married for about a decade. I am currently pregnant with our third child. My last pregnancy resulted in 2 gorgeous girls whom I absolutely adore. Now, here's a brief summary. A month and a bit ago, my husband and I took the kids to his mom's house for a family dinner. This happens every so often, and every single time, his ex, Joe, is invited by his mother. And every single time, without fail, she crosses boundaries with my husband that I'm sure would raise red flags in any other person's head. My husband does not fully entertain her advances, but he doesn't suppress them fully either, at least not in the way I think he should. In private, Joe is extremely catty towards me. It's as if her entire vibe is copied from Mean Girls. However, she and my mother-in-law get along great and the rest of the family likes her as well. I've been dealing with this situation for some time, but at that last gathering, I snapped and accidentally spilled my drink on her inappropriate dress after she said incredibly cruel things to me. My husband got mad at me for making a scene in front of his family, and we left shortly after. That's the summary. I ended up showing my husband the comments and private messages I received from my post a couple of days later, which were largely against him. I didn't anticipate it swaying his opinion much, and it didn't. In fact, it made the situation worse. He didn't like the overwhelming majority of comments claiming that he liked the attention, and he thought I embellished details about Joe's behavior in the post. I asked him if his mom even liked me, and he didn't even respond to the question. He looked at me and we sat in silence for a full minute. Many people under my previous post said I was crazy if I thought his mom would invite his ex to dinner with his wife and kids there as a show of respect and goodwill. Call me crazy, but I bought into the whole "she's a family friend" explanation and continually let it slide. I cried nonstop for days after our conversation. Maybe I'm an idiot and I should have seen the signs, but I genuinely thought my husband and I had a decent relationship with his mom, especially now that I have the twins. There was some stuff that happened early on in our relationship that caused some discord, but I thought we had moved past it all. Clearly not. I think it's much more likely that she likes her grandkids and just tolerates the person who gave birth to them. My husband and I stood at somewhat of an impasse for a week after that. I'm very loving by nature, but I've just about had it with this situation, so I was irritable, quiet, a complete 180 from my usual self. We talked again, and he said he'd try to be more assertive with Joe. I told him there'd be no need, since I had no plans on going to his mother's house anymore. Me not going means the twins can't either, since he can't very well be expected to entertain his family and look after the children he helped create. Though that does work in my favor, since his mom loves the twins, and he apparently cannot stand to disappoint her. The impasse continued. I've had a few complications with my pregnancy since then, and there have been so many other things happening in our lives that the tension between us has slowly started to dissipate. We have not resolved the situation at all. We've just glossed over it in favor of more pressing matters. I really do need him right now, and I'm not necessarily mad that things are starting to go back to normal. However, I know that it's going to become an issue again the next time his mom throws an event. I will convince myself that this time around will be fine, and it won't because it is never fine, but I'm unsure how to bring up the issue again without seeming like I'm dragging up the past. It truly drives me crazy, even more so now that I realize my mother-in-law's kindness isn't fully genuine. Is there any advice on bringing this up carefully, on resolving this issue once and for all? I'm at my wit's end because I adore this man in every other aspect, but I can't keep putting up with this. Update 2. My husband and I met in college. At the time, he and his on-again, off-again ex had broken up, so I asked him out. If I'd known back then what I know now, I'm not sure I would have bothered. 2 years into our relationship, I still hadn't met his parents. He hadn't met mine because my family is a disaster, but from what I could tell, his parents seemed fine. When I asked why I hadn't met them, he joked that his mom didn't like me because of his ex. I can't recall his specific words, but that was the general idea. Anyway, I treated it like a joke because he did. As time progressed, it felt less and less like a joke and more like the startling truth. I finally got to meet my mother-in-law and father-in-law a few months later, and the welcome was underwhelming, to say the least. But I figured it was just me having weird expectations. His family is Italian, so I'd done a little research on what to expect, in addition to asking him about his family. I thought they'd be a little warmer, but they were not downright rude to me, so it was still a win in my book. As time passed, I tried to warm up to my mother-in-law, but nothing worked. Her indifference slowly turned into thinly veiled disdain. For one of my father-in-law's birthdays, I got him a handmade Italian leather wallet with my husband's approval at the time. It turns out, Italians have a superstition against gifting empty wallets, which made the gift a bit awkward. However, my father-in-law didn't make a big deal and even gave me a coin to turn it into a purchase instead of a gift. We laughed and I thought things were fine, until I found the wallet tucked away in my husband's apartment a month later. I found out from him that my mother-in-law apparently said she got my father-in-law a better one, so mine wasn't needed anymore. I don't know when that happened or why no one bothered to tell me. Oh, and my father-in-law fell ill shortly afterwards, which I'm pretty sure she blamed on me too. My mother-in-law speaks fluent English, but for the first couple of months of knowing her, I was led to believe she only spoke Italian. That's all she would speak around me. Granted, I could have asked my husband about her level of English, but it didn't occur to me. I assumed one would speak English around company that didn't speak their native language if they had the ability to. Imagine my shock when I heard her speak fluent English for the first time. And don't get me started on wedding planning. It was an absolute nightmare. My mother-in-law nitpicked everything. We had a smaller budget and she made sure I felt lesser for it. She had mentioned wanting to be involved and she and my father-in-law were footing most of the costs, so I said yes. My bridesmaids helped deal with her, but eventually I cut her out of the planning entirely because having her around was starting to suck the life out of me. She also made a big deal about my parents not attending or paying for a portion of the wedding. My family and I were completely estranged at the time, and she didn't quite seem to like that either. She would rant in Italian, and while I didn't understand much, I knew she was talking negatively about me. Oh, and she's a classic enabler of the mama's boy syndrome. They infantilized my husband growing up, and there was a time when we couldn't buy groceries without her input. He's her golden boy. I've heard her refer to him as her miracle child. When friction would rise between my mother-in-law and me, he would try to keep the peace, but he still took her side in many situations. He only stood firm when she insulted my upbringing or tried to make me feel unworthy of marrying him. Both things I appreciated immensely because those are sore subjects, but I wish he'd done more at times. He isn't blameless in this either, but this post isn't really about him. To say the least, I have many stories about how cold and unpleasant my mother-in-law was towards me. However, when I got pregnant, her attitude did a complete 180. Suddenly, she was offering to babysit, cook meals, knit clothes, and so on. She even kissed me on both cheeks when she came to see us after I gave birth. We started cooking together, and she taught me family recipes and some niche Italian phrases commonly used in the village her family is from. I dare say we bonded. I thought we'd finally gotten past whatever the initial problem was. Maybe having children with her son was enough to prove that I was there to stay, so she decided to warm up to me. I don't know. I had no close maternal figures in my life. I've been estranged from my narcissistic mother since college and have hardly any contact with my grandmothers, so this felt incredibly cathartic. I wasn't racing to tell her my secrets or confide in her, but toying with the idea that we might be able to build up to that point made me happy. I had postpartum depression after the twins, and having her around to help was a godsend. I was hesitant at first, but she proved herself to be beyond trustworthy, and my husband and I were absolutely exhausted. I love my gorgeous girls, but having 2 kids at once made me the most irritable I've ever been. My stress levels were through the roof between feeding, nursing, changing, burping, soothing, and so on. My husband was equally exhausted, and just when we would feel hopeless, my mother-in-law would offer to come over, let us sleep, eat, go out, just do whatever we needed to recharge. We would talk usually about the kids, but I just felt excited that she wanted to hold conversations with me. In the past, she hadn't bothered. If she called, it was on her son's phone, and they'd speak, and then she'd hang up. But suddenly, she was asking to speak to me as well. There was something extremely validating about it all, and I was happy to put the past to bed in favor of this new change. But recently, through a situation related to but not the focus of this post, I realized she never respected me or my relationship with her son. For the past decade, my mother-in-law has been inviting my husband's ex to family gatherings and turning a blind eye to her blatant advances on him. She was introduced as a family friend, so I thought nothing of it initially. Plus, as my mother-in-law's and my relationship improved, I assumed any malice she showed toward me would naturally fade. She had been inviting my husband's ex to family events prior to me giving birth and continued to do so well after. I don't know why, but I made the naive assumption that because it continued, it couldn't have been in bad taste. We had gotten past our bad blood after all, so if she was still inviting my husband's ex, it couldn't have been with bad intent. Or so went my idiotic logic. But after posting about my situation, I realized that I was horribly naive about everything. Then a few weeks ago, I came across a post about a man disparaging his mom for treating his daughter-in-law poorly and then switching up when she gave birth to her grandchildren. And then it clicked. That is exactly what happened to me. My mother-in-law's kindness may never have been genuine towards me. Rather, her love for her grandchildren outweighed any disdain she held towards me. She wasn't warming up to me at all. She was tolerating my presence to have access to my kids. This realization has been eye-opening. Needless to say, I feel absolutely crushed. Everything else aside, I truly thought my mother-in-law was in my corner. The past 5 years felt so healing because of our relationship. I've never had a sustained, genuine relationship with an older woman before this, and finding out it was all fake is numbing in ways I can't explain. I feel so incredibly stupid, which is saying quite a bit, considering I didn't think feeling like more of an idiot was possible for me right now. I just wonder how starved for attention I must be to have missed such clear signs. Grieving a relationship relationship that only existed on my end is incredibly hard, and coming to terms with my own lack of awareness and disillusionment has been a battle among several others that I feel like I'm losing. I feel a bit pathetic, all things considered. How did I not realize? Now all these thoughts flood my mind about what she has been telling my children when she's with them and whether or not extended family is in on it as well. I've been a mess. God, I feel sick. There are certainly many layers to this situation, but this one hurts much more than I thought it would. I'm going to stop here because I've already written enough, but I am more than going through it. The Knight said, "Poor OP, her husband's family is terrible and he clearly is too. I couldn't imagine being so disrespectful to a child-in-law, even if I didn't like them. I mean, purposefully inviting the ex to gatherings where you know your son's wife will be. It's one thing if you are personally friends with the ex, but deliberately inviting the ex-girlfriend to antagonize and insult your daughter-in-law is a level of blatant disrespect that I don't think I would be able to inflict on anyone. I'm sure OP is not a perfect person, but it sounds like she's trying her best and getting treated poorly for no good reason. Her husband is a loser for not sticking up for her, and I would not be shocked if he had found a way to have an affair with the ex without OP knowing." To this user, New Mom said, "It's also being a really bad grandmother and playing with fire. Keeping the ex around gives her son a backup plan for whenever things get difficult between her son and his daughter-in-law. I believe that most people don't cheat under most circumstances, but most people could cheat under the right circumstances. She has no idea if her son won't be a weak person one day after a fight, which would probably cause his daughter-in-law to leave him. In the end, the kids would be harmed and she would lose regular access to her precious grandchildren. How short-sighted is she? What's her end game here?" Initial Company said, "The whole family is terrible, and her husband is included in that. He is worse in my book because it is his wife they are treating like garbage. For months, he stood by and let her think his mother wasn't fluent in English. Who does that? Well, apparently OP's husband does. What a charmer. He got mad because people pointed out that he might like the attention from his ex and all in all doesn't really care about OP's feelings. OP will never be good enough for any of them, including her husband. I feel so bad for OP. She could do so much better." This third post was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Visible Broccoli. The post is titled, "I broke up with my fiance for telling her best friend she was not engaged. My now ex-fiance and I got engaged 3 weeks ago. We've been dating for 5 years and I finally had the money to give her the wedding she wanted. Well, 3 days ago, we were discussing our guest list and I asked if she wanted to invite her best friend, let's call him James. James lives in another state, but since they've been friends for 10 years, I thought I could even pay for his travel expenses, as it would be great to have her best friend at the wedding. She denied it, saying it would take a lot of work to bring him, and she wanted it to be a family event. Countless times, she mentioned that James was like family to her, so I insisted. She got annoyed and said, I didn't even tell him we were engaged. That took me by surprise. I tried to ask why, but she started stonewalling me and I left her alone. After a couple of hours, I tried to ask her again why she hadn't told him we were engaged and she still refused to tell me. I admit that my insecurity got the better of me. In the past, James had confessed that he had feelings for her, which she turned down and basically friend-zoned him. But by the way she told me, it always sounded like she had him as a backup, something not only I, but her exes realized. She married him online. They always made their World of Warcraft characters look like a couple. And when she had a fight with her exes, he was always there for her, and so on. I told her that made me uncomfortable, and if she was not planning to tell him, she might as well consider herself single, because I would not marry someone who couldn't be honest. Yes, I was pretty immature, but she did something even more immature. She texted him while showing me her phone, something like, hey, just so you know, I was engaged, but not anymore, and sent it to him. I told her to pack her things and leave my house. Ever since she left, she has been calling me, but I refused to answer. My mom called me and said that I was an asshole for ending things over such a ridiculous thing. Update. Hey guys, I just got home after talking to my ex-fiance, and since a lot of people asked for an update, here it is. But I want to clarify a few things. As commented on my original post, I pay for the house since I bought it before dating her, and I asked her to move in because it was close to her job. I work from home since I'm in tech, but she had to go to work. That's why I paid for her car to help her commute. I was her partner, so I didn't see any problem with that. I thought she was the one, despite everything. She is smart, funny, and we had chemistry, but I felt betrayed. Now, here's the update. We met at a coffee shop on the premise that we would discuss how to save our relationship relationship. At least, that's what she thought. As soon as we sat down, I asked to see their messages. She got defensive immediately and told me she had deleted everything. I asked to see her phone anyway. She started to cry an ugly cry, asking me to stop. At that point, I had already decided I was not going to be part of the relationship anymore, but I was curious. It took a good 20 minutes for her to hand me her phone, a lot of crying, even a waitress asking her if she was okay. So I read the messages. There wasn't any cheating like nudes being exchanged or them professing their love for each other, but what I read still stung. There was a lot of trash talking about me, a lot. Texts and texts of them saying how terrible a person I was, criticizing my hobbies, saying I wasn't a real man because of them, and stuff like that. But there were two topics that caught my eye. One where she had told him I was having trouble getting hard and that was frustrating for her. And one where she was complaining about how she didn't want to be stuck in our relationship. Yes, I was having problems in bed because I was sad since my father had passed away 6 months ago. And the stuck thing, I remember telling her that when we got married, if she wanted, she could leave her job and I would provide for both of us. I don't know if she took this the wrong way, but I guess it was related to that. I honestly don't know. By the time I gave her the phone back, she was already making excuses for why she was saying those things to him, how he was like a therapist for her. Then she asked me, "Don't you complain about me to your friends?" And I simply replied, "No, I don't." She started crying again. I took a pretty deep breath and just said, "Just give me the ring back." She hesitated a bit, but gave it to me anyway. I stood up and asked her to delete my number and not bother me anymore. I called her mom and asked her to pick up her daughter's stuff at my place. Her mom is a good person. I'm just realizing I'm going to miss her as I write this. She understood why I decided to end it, but she didn't ask much, and to be honest, I'm glad she didn't. As for my mom, I didn't call her, I just blocked her for things unrelated to this post. I just realized she never had my back in anything. I was always trying to save an already failed mother-son relationship. Before I leave, I just want to clarify, I was never against her having male friends or any type of friends. People are going to cheat, friends or no friends. I remember my dad saying something to me when I was a teenager. He always said, "Opportunity makes the thief," but I don't agree with that. Anyway, since I have the next 2 weeks off work, I'm going to figure out what to do with the wedding money, drink some booze, play games, and watch Monday Night Raw later. Peace. P.S. Sorry for any typos, but I fixed the title now. Edit, a couple of people are asking about the car. It's a 2015 Nissan Versa, which she crashed twice. Both times she rear-ended someone. I never liked the car. It has a weak engine, the interior feels cheap, and overall it's bad. So for all I care, she can keep that piece of junk. I would have more luck throwing it off a cliff than selling it. Edit 2, little update. Her mom called me a few hours ago to check on me and to ask when she could come and pick up my ex's stuff. We spoke about the car and she basically forbade me to let her daughter keep the car because I paid for it and my ex wouldn't be able to maintain it. So I'm going to keep the car until I'm able to sell it. Also, some people called the story fake because they said I wasn't a real man for playing games and yet they played World of Warcraft. To be honest, that's on me because I wasn't very clear. The real man thing was more about the pro wrestling hobby than the gaming hobby, but in some messages they clearly mocked me for playing certain games. In one, I remember James saying something like, "How could a grown man play such a girly game and cry?" Yes, I cried playing Life is Strange. I also cried during Red Dead Redemption 2. I guess I'm a crybaby. Also, I want to thank everyone who messaged me to talk about wrestling and games. It really helped me take my mind off everything. I haven't replied to everyone yet, but I intend to. If anything happens, I'll let you guys know. Be good people. Hyena Shot said, "I never understood staying with someone while you trash talk them to your friends. If you're that unhappy, leave. Don't string them along. If you think they are that bad, why are you still with them? I'm glad he got away from her. He deserves better." ZZE said, "I'm glad he came to his senses quickly, but you would think he would have been wary of the fact that her exes also mentioned her best friend as a reason for their failed relationships." Stepped in Hairball said, "She's got some serious issues and had him all set to pay, but thankfully he wised up in time. Yikes, I'm not sure what she's thinking, but it clearly wasn't about her fiancé." Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.